let's get to work. And let's get to work in the company of a very good friend of mine, one of the country's finest political commentators. He's absolutely right. About 87% of the time, it's Benedict Spence. Top of the morning, Benedict.
Good morning. Is this going to be one of those days where I'm 13% out? Who knows?
I doubt it. Listen, Benedict, I want to ask you a simple question now, which is this reset that we're seeing, this enforced reset on the Labour government, is it good news or bad news for Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, I would err towards bad news, but, you know, we can sort of take the Deng Xiaoping approach and say it's too early to say what the effects of the French Revolution will be. It's certainly not something that he wanted to do this early. You know, a couple of days after saying, well, we're going to start phase 2 of my government and it's going to be better than the last time. Oh, whoops, I've lost my deputy prime minister. What are the odds? The problem is, really, with Sir Keir Starmer, you can shuffle around the people in the great offices of state, but if the ideology underpinning all of it doesn't change and the gumption, if you like, the cojones do not grow to do the difficult things required, it won't really make very much difference. And, you know, I've listened to lots of commentators saying, oh, this is a good thing. You know, look how many women are now in the great offices of state and ethnic minorities. And it seems like we're still stuck in sort of 2005. We're still talking about optics when the Overton window of politics has shifted very firmly away from that centre ground.
Now, Benedict, it's not a state secret that I'm no fan of Sir Keir Starmer, who, I'd rather have a dead plant running the country than Keir Starmer at the moment, OK? I'd rather have a faulty computer algorithm running the country. In fact, I'd quite happily do the job myself. But the issue we've got is I think people are underestimating Starmer's instinct for survival, OK? Because, yes, he's made a lot of bad judgment calls across a range of issues, including the economy and immigration. But if we know one thing about Starmer, it's that he's very ambitious. He's obsessed. He was obsessed with achieving power, which he did achieve, and he'll be obsessed with staying in power. He'll do anything to stay at number 10. So does that not mean that he'll start adopting some good policies in order to satisfy the needs of the British public?
I mean, possibly, but the polling is as bad as it is, and he still doesn't appear to have got to that stage yet. And it's not even just about saying, I'm going to do these things. I think patience for promises has long run out in this country. Actually, what they want is action, and people want action yesterday. Now, where I'd agree with you is I'd say that Labour doesn't currently have the mechanism to get rid of him, and the rest of the country doesn't have the mechanism to force a general election on, as unpopular a government as this is, even though it doesn't seem able to pass, cuts to spending or anything like that because its own MPs will rebel against it. We seem to be frozen in a slightly sort of nightmarish situation where the government can't do very much, but it also can't fall, even though, unlike when Theresa May was in this sort of situation, even though he has a huge majority, because actually it's Starmer's own MPs who are going to hamstring him along the way. So survive? Yes, he can survive. He could survive the next 4 years. I can very easily see that. Does that mean he will be able to rescue his government? Well, that's a slightly more difficult thing. There is a scenario where I can see him scraping in 4 years' time by the thinnest of margins, having not done very much. But I think that is very much down to who he comes up against. Do Reform get their act together by then? Do we somehow see a Tory renaissance? Doubt it, but still it's possible. But that's how I see him surviving, is basically gambling, betting the house on Reform tearing its own throat out because it's not entirely organised as it should be.
I mean, I think he has got time to play the long game, certainly a year or two. And if I was Keir Starmer and wanted to stay in office, which is it's his entire purpose on earth, that's what he exists to do. That's why there was no plan for government, because exactly like Boris Johnson, he just wanted the top job. There wasn't a plan at all, which is why during the election campaign in the run-up to last July, Starmer didn't tell us what he was going to do because he didn't know, because there was no plan. But what that does, that's obviously a great disadvantage for a Prime Minister, but it means that he's willing to turn on a dime. Don't forget that he was elected as Labour leader, pretending to be an arch socialist, a big Corbynite. Jeremy Corbyn was his friend, and he did a major pivot on that. He was going to nationalise everything, and he shifted to the right almost immediately after being elected. So he's bound to shift again. The question is, will his party let him? Because what he needs to do, doesn't he, is he needs to cut taxes in order to spark economic growth. He needs to stop the boats unilaterally to, maybe a few hundred a week. And he needs to get legal net migration down to about 200k. If he did all those things, I think he's in with a fighting chance, but his
Yeah.
party won't let him.
Exactly. That's the thing. His own party is the obstacle. Because as you say, cut taxes, everybody's screaming for taxes to be cut. But at the same time, in order to do that, you have to cut spending.
Right.
And they just
Bingo.
refuse to do it. They absolutely refuse to allow benefit spending or anything like that to be touched, partly because so many of their own constituencies have so many people in them who rely on state handouts. And a lot of those MPs are terrified of their own shadow. They worry about losing their own seats. And this is the problem, is that the party could very easily tack to the left at the exact moment it needs to tack to the right, because his MPs are scared of Zach Polanski and the Greens and Jeremy Corbyn and whatever his party's called today. Now, you and I might sit there and go, well, that's slightly laughable. But in those parts of the world, maybe it's not so laughable.